Today, we open with Duquesne man lying on a bunk in a prison cell, counting days and facing the stains of mold above. Guest, what does this opening tell us about the psychological weight of confinement?
The imagery of counting days and staring at decay encapsulates both monotony and the corrosive effect of isolation. Studies show that prolonged solitary environments can amplify regret and force inmates into cycles of intense self-reflection, which we see in Duke's recounting of his life choices.
That sounds almost like a forced meditation, but with an undercurrent of despair. How does this compare to real-world narratives of incarceration?
Many inmates describe similar experiences, a relentless review of past actions with little distraction. It's akin to being locked in a room with nothing but your own conscience, which, according to a 2019 survey, is linked to higher rates of depression and remorse.
Moving chronologically, Duke's first pivotal decision was dropping out of high school. How does this single act often set off a chain reaction in marginalized communities?
Dropping out is statistically linked to increased incarceration rates. The National Center for Education Statistics found that high school dropouts are 63% more likely to be incarcerated than graduates. For Duke, this path led to fast money and gang life, illustrating the allure and peril of shortcuts.
It's reminiscent of a domino setup. One piece falling can topple an entire structure of opportunities. Are there interventions that have successfully interrupted this pattern?
Yes, mentorship and alternative education programs have shown promise. For instance, the Becoming a Man, BAM, initiative in Chicago reduced violent crime arrests by nearly 50% among participants, proving early support can make a tangible difference.
Next, Duke's relationship with his girlfriend offered him a glimpse of redemption, a chance to change. Why do intimate relationships sometimes catalyze transformation in people with troubled pasts?
Supportive relationships can serve as emotional anchors, encouraging self-improvement. Research in the Journal of Offender Rehabilitation suggests that family and romantic bonds increase the likelihood of desistance from crime by 30%. Duke's girlfriend gave him a reason to live, which is a powerful motivator for change.
Yet, as we see with Duke, even love sometimes isn't enough to break cycles. Is this a matter of individual will, or do systemic barriers play a larger role?
It's a complex interplay. While personal resolve is crucial, systemic issues like lack of access to legitimate work or ongoing threats from criminal networks can undermine even the strongest intentions. Duke's attempt to escape highlights these external pressures.
Duke's third turning point came when he stole from his boss. What are the dangers of defying authority within criminal organizations?
Criminal hierarchies are often brutally enforced. Breaking trust, especially with a kingpin, almost guarantees retaliation. Studies of organized crime show that internal betrayal leads to violence in over 80% of cases, a stark reminder of the zero-sum logic at play.
It's like playing chess with no safe squares left. How do people justify these high-risk moves?
Desperation, hope for a new life, or protecting loved ones can override fear. Duke's decision was driven by a mix of self-preservation and hope for redemption, but the consequences were swift and severe.
Let's discuss the shootout Duke's impulsive, tragic response to capture. What does this reveal about decision-making under acute stress?
Cognitive science tells us that under threat, the brain's fight or flight response can override rational thought. Duke's actions, resulting in multiple casualties, reflect a panic-induced tunnel vision. In 2018, the FBI reported that such split-second decisions often lead to irreversible harm.
And the aftermath, especially with Duke seeing himself as a hero, suggests self-delusion. Is this common among those who commit violent acts?
Yes, temporary self-justification is a known psychological mechanism to mitigate guilt. Over time, however, this illusion usually crumbles, leading to profound remorses we see with Duke.
After the violence, Duke's girlfriend is killed, a shattering moment. How do such losses reinforce or alter an individual's sense of guilt and grief?
Losing a loved one due to one's own actions intensifies both guilt and grief. Clinical psychologists observe that complicated grief often overlaps with trauma, leading to persistent emotional distress and self-punishment. Duke's lament echoes these overlapping wounds.
It's a classic case of consequences coming full circle. Could such experiences ever lead to positive transformation, or is it mostly destructive?
While most initially spiral into despair, some eventually channel their pain into advocacy or self-betterment. However, in environments like prison, opportunities for positive outlets are rare.
Shifting focus, Duke reminisces about his father, a complex figure with both criminal and heroic pasts. How do family legacies shape identity, especially amid adversity?
Family narratives can serve as both inspiration and caution. Sociological research shows that children of incarcerated parents are 6 times more likely to face incarceration themselves, due partly to modeled behaviors and inherited reputations. Duke's reverence for his father is a double-edged sword.
The poetic structure estrophy, antistrophe, eponym mirrors Greek tragedy? Do you think these narrative forms help in processing trauma?
Absolutely. Structured storytelling provides psychological distance and meaning, allowing individuals to frame their suffering within a larger context. It's a therapeutic tool used in narrative therapy today.
Duke eventually confesses his crimes, detailing each tragic choice. What role does confession play in the process of seeking forgiveness or self-understanding?
Confession, whether public or private, is foundational to many justice and therapeutic frameworks. It can be cathartic, helping individuals externalize guilt. However, as seen with Duke, true relief remains elusive unless accompanied by restitution or acceptance, something not always possible in the justice system.
So, in cases like Duke's, where restitution is impossible, what options remain for finding peace?
Some turn to spirituality, others to creative expression. The journey is deeply personal, and for many, it's a lifelong struggle.
Despite everything, Duke clings to hope, thinking of his son, his mother, and even God. How does this persistent hope function in situations of total loss?
Hope can act as a psychological lifeline, maintaining resilience even when circumstances seem hopeless. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, wrote that meaning can be found in suffering itself. Duke's hope, though fragile, is an act of defiance against despair.
Is there evidence that such hope actually improves outcomes, even in prison?
Yes, longitudinal studies show that inmates with future-oriented thinking have lower rates of recidivism and mental health decline. Even small glimmers of hope can change the trajectory of one's final days.
As Duke walks his final steps toward execution, he exhibits a blend of resignation and longing for mercy. What psychological processes are at work during such end-of-life moments?
In the face of mortality, individuals often experience life review, where they assess meaning, regret, and legacy. The rituals described priestly blessings, last words are attempts to secure dignity and perhaps forgiveness. Research on death row inmates reveals a complex mix of fear, acceptance, and spiritual searching.
Duke's last plea for mercy echoes across history. Have any restorative justice models addressed such final appeals?
Some restorative justice programs allow for victim-offender mediation, offering a space for remorse and forgiveness before death. While rare, these moments can bring closure to both parties, though not always absolution.
The narrative shifts to a limerick, a man's quest for healing after loss, guided by a hermit. What does this allegorical journey symbolize in the context of grief recovery?
The quest represents the arduous, nonlinear path through grief. The magical fruits and trials are metaphors for confronting and integrating painful emotions. Psychologists often use similar symbolic journeys in therapy to help clients reframe suffering as growth.
The hermit's message that the journey itself is the cure seems profound. Does research support this process over product philosophy?
Absolutely. Studies in positive psychology show that post-traumatic growth arises not from outcomes, but from the process of overcoming adversity. The journey, not the destination, brings healing and transformation.